Morning everyone. Blood Bowl vlog time. Sorry I haven't done one of these for a couple of weeks now. Basically that short interlude in between nerd things called real life has been a little bit busy recently. So today I thought we'd go over one of the more popular races in Blood Bowl, the Dwarf team. The Dwarf team is one of the first of the new release sets. As I record this, we by far haven't got all of the new releases. I hear that basically every team in the game will be re-released in a new kit of some kind. We've only got a few so far, and the Dwarf being one of them. They're a really popular team for a good reason. They're one of the strongest teams out of the box. They need a little help in terms of skill progression. They're not as strong as, say, the Wood Elves, which, you know, just out of the box are one of they're the strongest team, really, in terms of winning games of Blood Bowl. But the Dwarfs are very good. Reason being, they've got one of the strongest linemen in the game, the Longbeard. Comes with block, tackle, and thick skull skills. And just in terms of the whole team, you really can get a lot for your money. You can get a full team or your positionals, 12 men, and you can get some sideline stuff. You can get your re-rolls, an apothecary. And remember that I talk about tournament Blood Bowl, so this is at sort of 1.1, 1.2 million typically. But they're a really good team. I've seen a lot of the new players that I've encountered in recent months, since the new release in 2016. They're one of the more frequently seen teams from my perspective. Maybe you've seen sort of more humans or something, but the Dwarfs are one of the teams that I've seen a lot of. But the new guys being new, I haven't sort of got to grips with the optimal team selection yet. So that's why I've decided to do this video, just give you guys a heads up. I've got a half decent Dwarf rating. I'm not the best, I'm not the worst, but I can handle myself with these guys, and I've taken them to a couple of the international tournaments with Team Wales. And when you skill them up correctly, they're really tough to beat. So the first thing that I want to cover, because I know when you look at it on face value, you might be tempted, and by all means, if you want to take it just for funsies, then absolutely go for it. But I would leave the Death Roller at home if you're looking at, you know, the optimal selection for the team. For what it is, it's a very expensive thing to take. It costs a lot of gold pieces. It takes a lot of your allowance for the rest of your team, and you know, it being a secret weapon, it can be gone in the blink of an eye. Really, if you come across a couple of fast-paced teams that put touchdowns in a couple of turns, then that thing is going to be sent off, and you're just going to have wasted all that gold. It's not really, doesn't really achieve much for the Dwarfs, because when you guard up as much as you should, I would say, you can handle yourselves against the higher strength pieces in the game, and you don't really need that help from a big guy type of player, which is what the Death Roller is really for the Dwarfs. So following that, in terms of the skills, then, like I said, if you're not familiar with the tournament scene, if you're new to it, if you're thinking about getting into it, usually, certainly in the UK, you get a skills pack. So that could be just a sort of vanilla tournament will be 6 single skills. That's a single roll skill, so nothing that you can achieve on a double, and you can only take one. Each player can only have one additional skill, so you're not going to be stacking skills, as it's called. For the Dwarfs, basically, you couldn't really go wrong if you basically just gave them 6 guard players. So maybe that's 4 of the linemen and your 2 blitzers. Give all those guys guard, and you're good to go basically. You can have a mighty blow piece here and there, or blocking the runners is a semi-viable option, but the idea is to not have your runners get hit, so it can be a little bit redundant. But with guard, basically you're going to be looking to completely control the blocking game. Your opponent's going to find it very, very difficult to achieve 2 dice blocks on your players, and you're often by proxy going to find yourself with 2 dice on your opponent. It helps you deal with higher strength pieces, as I said, and the other thing to consider about the Dwarfs, beyond just skill selection, is obviously they're the slowest, well, one of the slowest teams in the game. That's the key things for Dwarves, is making sure that you're not getting dragged out of position, because it's very difficult to get back into position. If you're a quick team, if you're humans or elves, then if you find yourself a little bit out positioned, you can quickly make amends. Dwarfs, that's not the case. If you drag a couple of your linemen over to one side of the pitch, then they're basically going to be there for a couple of turns. So I'll give you an example. I played a new player recently who took the Dwarf team, and the first thing that they did was position their entire team on the front line. Now, I was my human, so obviously I had movement on basically every position. They even had their runner on the front line in a place where I could immediately surf it off the pitch. So I did that. Got the gap to exploiting the team, and I was away then. I just flooded the backfield, and my touchdown was really a formality. So that's an extreme example, obviously, putting your entire team on the front line, but maybe you think that's a good way to go in terms of being aggressive with your blocking or something. But the flip side of that is that you've just got acres behind your entire team, and they're just too slow to get back there. So it's not the way to go. So bear in mind your position. Bear in mind keeping areas covered, keeping your team back so that your opponent can't stall out and things of that nature. Just keep in mind that you're a very, very slow team. That's obviously the key weakness for the Dwarf team. You don't have to take all your positionals with the Dwarfs, so there is the option to not field 2 Troll Slayers. They're good for dealing with higher strength pieces, but when you've got a lot of guard, that's not entirely necessary. But the other positive is, of course, they've got Frenzy, which is a really strong skill for developing chain pushes and things like that, and taking opposition players off the pitch. I had a game with the Dwarfs. I think I went over it in a video building up to the NAF, where I went over the Frenzy skill. And with my Dwarfs, I played an undead player that I just managed to demolish by virtue of just surfing his players off the pitch. I was using my Troll Slayer. I think I only took 1 to that tournament, but I used it to good effect. So the other side of it is, of course, if you don't take 2 Troll Slayers, your average armor on the team is increased. You've got another armor 9 piece, and you also increase the field of tackle, because you'll be replacing that Troll Slayer with a lineman who comes with tackle. So for any opposition players with the dodge skill, they're going to have a difficult time, because there's going to be so much tackle on the pitch. If you can afford to take 12 men, so you've got that reserve piece in there, and that also gives you the opportunity to elect not to field both runners at the same time. If you're up against a team that's not particularly fast, just as the same as you, but sorry about that. But yeah, if you're up against a team that's not particularly fast, you can elect to leave one of your runners in reserve, and that gives you again another tackle, another armor 9, another block skill on the field. So really make that kind of wall of iron that's really difficult for your opponent to get through, which is the key to success with the Dwarfs. Dwarfs are a little bit difficult. They get a bad rep for being boring. They're not particularly boring. It's just that they're one of these teams that's kind of easy to get a draw with. They're good for a new player to take because of their skills, what they come with just out of the box. But to kind of grind out a 1-1 draw is sometimes a little bit straightforward with the Dwarfs, and that's where you fall down when you're actually trying to compete and win tournaments, because obviously you need to be pushing on and winning games rather than just relying on getting the tie. So that just comes down to practice, learning how to push on with lower movement team. Keeping the ball safe isn't all that difficult with them, because you've got, you can obviously take whatever skills that you want, but we're just talking about optimal team builds here. So, you should have plenty of guard there, and packing that around your sure hands runner who has the ball. You can keep the ball safe, but it's just getting it up the pitch and scoring in time and keeping your opponent out, which is what we're thinking about when we look at our position, and keeping our players back and a good spread on the team. So with these vlogs, there's a limited amount that I can sort of impart. The channel is gonna evolve, but the idea of these videos is really just me as I'm driving, just prattling on and giving some ideas for some of the new guys. So when the channel evolves and I get new equipment, we'll certainly do some more in-depth videos and cover some more of the finer details. But hopefully there's just a couple of things there for you guys to think about. If you have indeed picked up the Dwarf team, I'll be getting the new box set probably next year, either that or Undead, but still humans for now. But it's a lovely team. So if you have picked that up, then hopefully there's something here for you to think about, even if it's just maybe leaving a death roller at home. Again, a little bit more sort of fleshed out on the rest of your team. Okay, guys. So sorry for the little bit of a delay in getting another video up. I'll try and kick on and keep them coming, and hopefully I'll be seeing some of you guys at tournaments as we move on through the year. Alright, so have fun, guys, roll some dice and play some Blood Bowl, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.